Okay, it is 1:30, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. This is the 2026 Human Services Grant Program Application Workshop. We do this every year when our grant program opens up for applications. So I'm going to go over a few slides here with you all, and I'll be hopefully able to answer questions and that come up. If I for some reason don't catch it, you can email me too. So the topics today are eligible agencies, programs, and projects, priority focuses for funding, the application timeline, the application overview, and required attachments, and also questions. So the grant is open to only to nonprofits. So for-profit agencies are not eligible. And the nonprofit has to be focused on human services. So it can't just be like an HOA or a regular random nonprofit that doesn't specifically do direct service to community members around human services. We like to work with people who have a history of serving Lacey residents. They have financial stability, they're responsive and allow us to do site visits if necessary. We like to tell the stories about how the grants are used. The council often wants to know, how the grant's being used, and we like to take pictures. I know taking pictures is sometimes very difficult with the kind of work we do, but it's sometimes helpful to tell that story with some photos. And then we do have some grant requirements. It's very basic. This grant is very pretty simple compared to a lot of the federal grants that you see, where the reporting requirements for this is basically a quarterly report if you're billing quarterly. If you're only going to invoice once, then we ask that you send the annual report in. And then just making sure that you have receipts for everything and that you attach your receipts to your payment request form. We do have, those program reports that help us to, again, document that we're spending the money appropriately and that we report back to the city leadership that we're using the money as we intended. So this year, the primary areas for funding are affordable housing and homelessness. So that's expanding and upgrading affordable housing programs, emergency rental assistance, housing education, creating and maintaining supportive housing services that prevent homelessness. Another focus area is youth, projects that serve Lacey youth, including daycare, and behavioral health type projects or programs where the mental and physical health care, drug and alcohol recovery, and support for people that are in times of crisis. And if you have any questions about whether your program or project is eligible, it's always good to give me a call ahead of time so we can talk about it and make sure that you are eligible and that your program falls within the parameters of the eligibility requirements. So the application timeline is always subject to change. Again, we have open to all nonprofits serving community members. You don't need to actually be physically located in the city of Lacey in order to be eligible. We have several nonprofits that are located in other communities that serve Lacey residents, and they have received grants in the past. But if you're applying to build something, brick and mortar, that brick and mortar, or if you're planning on, using it to expand a typical physical building, that would need to be in Lacey. So those are called capital projects. I call them brick and mortar because it's easier to just explain. But we do have those two types of projects available. So applications are open now. They're available online, and I will show you where to get the application and what the application looks like. I'm going to go over each section of the application. There's 4 sections, and each section is very similar to the last 2 years. This is our 3rd year we're doing this program. And then we do have the applications open till the end of the month, till June 26th at 4 p.m. We do not accept late applications. So if for some reason an emergency happens, give me a call, shoot me an email. We can talk about, what's happening that day, but don't wait till the last day. Because then if there's an unforeseen emergency with your family or emergency with the computer, you're not super stressed out trying to get that in at the last minute. So the maximum capital award, so that's the brick and mortar physical projects, would be $50,000, and the maximum award for public service is $30,000. Because of the demand, usually the ask from the community is 3 times as much as we actually have to give out. So we've only been able to give out about 30,000 per agency per year, the ones that do get awarded. And so in order to make it accessible to as many agencies as we can, we try not to, just have it be one agency gets the whole pot. We try to give it to multiple agencies. And then we do allow one application per agency to make it more accessible to more nonprofits. Why isn't this moving forward? Okay. So again, we talked about the capital projects must be located in Lacey. The program year, so once the project, did I skip a slide? Okay. The program year runs September 1, 2026 to August 31, 2027. We ask that you fill out the form completely. When you're doing the application, anything with the red star, the application is in an application called Smart Sheets. It's Lacey uses it for a lot of things, and it won't let you go forward in the app if it's a star and you don't fill it in. It will say, hey, you need to fill this box in. And again, they're due June 26th by 4 p.m. and late applications will not be accepted. So this is the program timeline that we've shared with the Human Services Commission and the City Council, and they've approved this. And again, unforeseen things could happen, but the idea is that we would be having the applications due June 26th, and then our commission would review in July. What part of the program is we open up to present to our Human Services Commission every year. So you can tell them about your project, and that really helps them learn more and answer any questions that they have. So we're going to have 2 sessions, July 1 at 3 o'clock and July 2nd at 5:30. We're holding a special public meeting July 1 at 3, because what happened is last year we had 20 applicants and we crammed it all into one. Day, and it was just too much for everybody. So in order to give the applicants a break and the commission a break, I'm going to break it into 2 days. So depending on how many applications we have, that will determine how many presentations per day, but keeping it a shorter meeting too. I try not to have meetings go longer than 2 hours if at all possible. So the council has final say. So the city's Human Service Commission will score the applications and review your presentations, and that's a public meeting. Anyone can come. The council members are welcome to attend as well. And then they make a recommendation to the city council, and then the city council has the final say on the awards. So they could possibly change things around, but they usually don't. They usually take the recommendation of the commission. So they would approve that in August, and then the program would start September 1. I'm seeing some questions come in, so that's great. We're applying for our project Critical Home Repair Program that would complete projects only in Lacey. Is this considered a service project or capital project? Rebuilding Together, it is considered a service project. We have funded the Critical Home Repair Program in the past, and it would be considered service-based. And then we have a question about successful applicants need to submit quarterly reports. When do these reports need to be submitted? Typically, the quarterly reports, I get them in when people invoice us. So some agencies, we don't tell people how to bill us. Some agencies will bill us monthly. Some will bill us quarterly. Some will only send in one invoice. So it would be nice to get those. I usually get the quarterly reports with the invoices as they come in. There's not a set date, like, okay, your first report is due January, like March 6th or something like that. We don't have a set deadline. So because each agency does things a little bit different, how they bill. And definitely if I don't get a report at all, you'll get an email from me saying, hey, I never got your final report, and could you please send it in? And then we will wrap up the billing cycle then with the final report. Another question is, can organizations apply under a fiscal sponsor if they're not a nonprofit? I will need to check that. I don't know for sure. I'll need to get back to you on that. Typically, so we have a human services policy, which I'll show the link to that. But typically you have to be an already established 501(c)(3). We haven't had fiscal sponsorship before. I'll need to go back and review the policy, and see how that would look. Because mostly we ask for your 501(c)(3) incorporation paperwork with the application. So this is what the application looks like, and this is the link. It's on our webpage. It's basically is on the left side. It says the overview of it, and there's a link directly to the human services policy, which I will show you the link to that as well. And I'm not going to go over each page, but there's, like I said, there's 4 sections, and that's where the link is. It's on the grant webpage. That webpage, if you know anybody that couldn't make the webinar that wants to view it, I'm going to put the webinar recording and the answers to all the questions on the website. So here's the Human Services Grant policy. And again, you click on this. It's linked on the Human Services Grant Program webpage. And there's a real brief description in the application, but then if you want to read the full policy, you can look at that. And it's basically everything we're talking about today, and goes into a little bit more detail about things like what would happen if the grant didn't get used and things like that. Yes, Danny, this is a reimbursement grant. So all of our grant programs are cost reimbursement. So we don't pay out money in advance until the services are rendered. And similar to like when we do our federal grant program, we don't get paid in advance. We have to actually get the funds out of our budget, and then they reimburse us. So sections, I'm going to start with section 1, which is the general information section. This section is general information about the project or program. It asks about your past experience if you've worked with Lacey before, and includes the number of people served and anticipated to serve. This is a really important piece of how many residents of Lacey do you think you're going to serve, and then includes a program description, and that's worth 30 points. And this program requirement that started, basically, this is kind of what we need in order to move forward if you do get grants. We have the liability insurance. The city requires, they will not allow me to contract with anyone unless I get a copy of your insurance with the city of Lacey listed as insured. So that's part of the requirement. Again, we talked about invoices with receipts, that documentation of what was spent. The 501(c)(3) determination letter, that's where I don't think that we do allow fiscal sponsorships, but I'll double check on that. Be able to sign documents electronically. We use DocuSign, which is really easy and simple. Typically, the person who's writing the grant is not the one who signs the official grant. Like that's a executive director or board chair or something like that. So that's it. We'll get to that further down the line in the application. Basic info. We might do an annual site visit. I don't visit every single agency because a lot of people are working in confidential environments with confidential client information. So we don't ask for any client information. We don't divulge anything about our clients, and we don't take pictures unless it's of like a building or there's a release of information, or the agency's already has permission to share photos of a certain event. Other than that, I don't ask for pictures or anything. We ask you to retain the records for 7 years. And I think that's for the auditing purposes. We get audited every year, and the auditor looks at all of our receipts and makes sure that we retain everything. Youth is a focus area. How is youth defined? Under age 18. Yeah, we don't have a youth age defined in the policy. That's something I guess we could think about doing. I typically do 25 and under when I'm thinking of youth. I know that there's a lot of folks that focus only on 18, but when I've been working with youth programs, it usually it goes beyond just 18. So I would say 25 and under. And then how is someone defined as a resident of Lacey? We actually have a little, they have to have a Lacey address, and we actually have a web on our website. You can click on it. It says, "Do I live in Lacey?" And it's a map. It'll take you to the map, and you can enter the address in to see. Because a lot of folks who call us or interact with us, they're not even sure if they're living in Lacey. So it's on the city's main page. And if I have a chance, I will go to the city's main page and find that, because it's a pretty neat tool. I think the GIS department set that up. So the second part of the application is organizational overview. Another question is, isn't the Lacey requirement for brick and mortar, we reside in Thurston County? So the requirement for brick and mortar is that the building is in Lacey itself. So not just Thurston County, but the actual physical structure. So for example, say you have a home, this is just totally hypothetical, this isn't real. Say you have a homeless shelter or a shelter for families, and you want to expand it, build onto it, and you want to apply for grant funds to expand your homeless shelter. That would be a brick and mortar project. That shelter would have to be in Lacey itself. Okay, so section 2, I'll go back to this. This is the organizational overview. This is very basic, your primary contact information. So there's who writes the grant isn't usually the person who actually signs the grant. And then, so just, it'll ask you the contact information for the signature for the grant. That's going to be through DocuSign. I will need your executive director or board chair, whoever's email address, so that I can send them the DocuSign documents to do the contract. Your federal tax ID number, the number of years in business. It'll ask you questions like partnership and coordination, like what other agencies do you work with? A lot of our agencies are all connected. And then how do you engage the clients in your programming and, cater your programming towards the client? And then your diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, is that included in your, mission, vision of your program or your agency? That section's worth 35 points total. I should say the whole application is 100 points. And each section of the 4 sections is worth a certain number of points. So then when the commissioners, I don't score the applications. I don't have say over who gets awarded. I work with the commission and the council to make that decision, and I help get everything ready and all the paperwork, make sure all the documents in order, and any questions that come up ahead of time, try to get that taken care of before it goes to the public meetings. But I'm not actually scoring these. There's 7 commissioners who score them, along with the Lacey Youth Council member if they want to. I'm not sure if our youth council member she's on summer break, but she's welcome to score them. So there might be 8 people scoring. One of the things that comes up is, what if someone has a conflict of interest and they recuse themselves? Do you get a 0 in the application score? And that does not occur. So for instance, have agency say, one of my commissioners is on the board of a nonprofit that's applying for funds. They will not be scoring the application, and they will not be participating in the discussion of how the funds for that agency are divided up. But I give an average. So you're not going to get a 0 because the commissioner's on your board. It would be averaged over all the different scores. So everybody in that particular application section, you'd all get an average. You get an average score. So section 2, organizational overview. Section 3 is really the project overview. So it'll ask you about your program project design, program project outcomes, the eligibility, how do people get eligible for your program or project, the project location and address. Again, this is important because if you're building something physically, your agency might have an address in Olympia, Tumwater, but your building is going to be in Lacey. Those might be 2 different places. So we have different places on the app for different addresses. And this one is worth 20 points. The last section is the budget, and it's a very simple Excel form that is linked to the application. We do ask that you fill this out and use this to determine, what kind of spending is gonna occur. You're not required to have a match, but it does help if you do have, not rely on just one source of funds. You tend to get a better outcome if you have other additional funding sources for what you're trying to do in order to just not rely on one funding source. And then just as personnel expenses, administration, project or program costs, there is a new question in the section of budget of how much of the budget goes on staffing, but there's no limit to how much you can have requests for administrative staffing. It asks about, if you've ever been audited, and if you were audited, what was the result? And then there's some attachments that it asks for. So like the budget and then your documentation for your agency, and there's a couple other items like a statement, a budget statement, and your current board list. Oh, here it is right here. I forgot this slide was in here. So program project budget using the form that we have. Current list of board members, IRS tax exempt determination, a copy of the I-990, and then the copy of the current operating budget, income and expense report. That was pretty much it for the webinar slides. Any additional questions that people have? Could drop them in the chat. Can you recap the point value for each section? Yes, I can. So section 1 is worth 30 points. And that's the general information section. Section 2 is worth 35 points. That's the organizational overview. And the clients that are programming in DEIB principles are weighted higher. That was based on the feedback that I received from the commissioners. They wanted to put a higher value on that. So obviously just years in business and stuff like that is not scored. It's just basically how you utilize your feedback from the community on what you're doing, and then do you include DEIB in the work that you do. Section 3 is worth 20 points. And section 4 is worth 15 points total. So it's a total of 100 points. Any other questions? Go ahead and drop it in the chat. Is the scoring rubric available? I can actually put the scoring rubric online on our website. That was at that, I don't have the rubric. I have to clean it up because when it went to commission and to council, it had a bunch of red lines through it and everything. I'm in the process of cleaning it up and making it look nice and taking out all the edits. And I can throw that up on the webpage. Again, it's at the cityoflacey.org human service grant. That's the main page, and that will have the link to the application, link to the policy, the program timeline, and then I can also throw the rubric up there as well. The rubric is available through all these public meetings, but you shouldn't have to dig through all the council agendas and all the Human Service Commission agendas to find it. I will find it, clean it up, put it up there, hopefully today. I was working on it this morning and then I got taken away to do something else, so I apologize. But that's a great idea. We did not have it up there last year. So you can see that the questions that come up, the questions correspond with the rubric, and you can see how that is decided. And yes, I will put my contact info back up. My phone number is 360-486-8746. That's my office. And if you go to that webpage too, to apply, my phone number and emails on that, and my phone number and emails on the application. One quirky thing that I don't like about Smartsheets is that it doesn't let you go out and come back in. So what I recommend, there's also a PDF you can download from the webpage that has all the questions so you know what they are. Have your questions prepared, like your answers prepared, like in a Word document or something, so you can sit down and do the whole application in one sitting. I used to do at a different agency, different city. I again did applications in oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the name of the SurveyMonkey, if you can believe it. We didn't have a large budget, just like this program. You can't justify grant management software expense when you only have a $300,000 budget. So you got to use the tools that the city gives you or makes available to you. So, and we want all the money to go out to the community. We don't want to be paying for a bunch of fancy, expensive software. So in SurveyMonkey, if someone said, "Hey, I went out and then I had an emergency and I can't find my application," it would save the partial application. I could go and find it and email it to them in where they were at. But this one, it doesn't allow you to start your app, go do something, shut off your computer and then come back. So please have that backup going so you can sit down and do it all. So my email is michelle.chavez@cityoflacey.org. My cell number is also up here. Both my cell and my office phone are connected. So no matter what, both of them ring together. They're synced. So no matter what, if I'm not at the office, my cell will ring. It's connected to my desk. And 9 times out of 10, I will answer it. I'm usually really good about responding to emails, usually within 24 hours. I will get back to you. And if I don't have an answer, I will say I need to check with others and get an answer. We are a small nonprofit with not enough funds to pay for an audit. Can we use Form 990 for the previous year instead? Yes, I believe so. A full audit, yes, those are spendy. And I think the 990 should be fine. A lot of agencies that are smaller don't have the funding to pay for a large audit, so that should be fine. I need to follow up with the scoring rubric for sure. Any other questions? And again, if you think of something that comes up later while you're in the process of applying, or you have a question, I don't know if my project is eligible, please reach out to me. I'm here Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. I'm off this coming Friday, but I will be here. And the week of the 22nd, I'm going to be over at the Veterans Hub, but I'll have all my same, like I said, all my same access to my computer, my phone, my cell phone, all that stuff. So I'm just as available if I'm at the hub as I am if I'm at City Hall. I don't see any more questions coming in. So it is 1:58. I don't want to keep you past the hour mark, but again, look for this recording. As soon as I get done with this, I'm going to have our IS person help me get the recording up on the website. So you can find it. You can go back and read the slides. The slides will be on the website. The rubric will be up there. The application's on there. And then I'll also have a link it'll probably be a link to the YouTube video. Other than that, I thank you guys for being here. I think we had about 12 people. That's a good number of folks, more than I had last year, which is great. I decided to just do webinars because it's easier. People don't have to travel and try to get to City Hall. It's just easier to do it online. So I hope you liked it. I hope it was helpful. Reach out to me if I didn't cover anything or you have any additional questions. Thank you so much. Take care.